just like Tammy, you're just spreading.
Well, I was here and then I condensed, so.
And we have two online. Are they on? Pulling Amanda, but
Okay.
we don't know if they're on. You've got a hot mic. So.
All right. Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We want to thank you all for being here today. We will start the meeting with our roll call, and we have two online, so we'll go through this one by one. We'll start with Chair Hymas.
Here.
Chair Hart, Vice Chair Hart.
Here.
Vice Chair Wood, yes. Christina, or Member Bogus. I'm just reading the sheet. Thank you. Member Booth. Member Bollinger.
I'm here.
Thank you. Member Davis. Member Green. Member Brinton. Member Carey. You're not here yet. Okay. Member Lear. Member Hall.
You guys know how they end up.
Member Real. Member Kelly. Okay. Member Kelly.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Member Earl. Right, thank you. So we're just missing Member Carey at this time when we know he's in the area, so. All right, we will start with the area, and I'm going to do a public apology to Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Scott Jones, because I missed him on the agenda last week. So we will give him all the time he needs this week in my penance. So Superintendent, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent of Operations, Scott Jones. Item number 2. So just as some background, and I'll be very succinct and quick here before we get into it, because I think they're still working on the technical aspects of being able to get the slides up for you, the presentation materials. We have this as a perpetual agenda item each year where you meet weekly as part of the legislative session. We do our level best as staff to ensure and keep you informed about what's going on in the Public Education's Appropriations Committee, which will ultimately lead to decision-making processes by the PEA, and then ultimately the Executive Appropriations Committee as it relates specifically to public education funding. Always inclined to ensure that we're supportive and demonstrating resolve in getting your top 10 funding requests in front of the Public Education Appropriations Committee, addressing their requests for appropriations as they come up. And then depending on the year, and I'll get to that here in just a second, making sure that you're duly informed about what actions or potential actions PEA might take that will have effects on either the base budget or the long-term increases to, or potential long-term increases to the budget overall. So with that, can we pull the presentations up yet, or? Yeah, because otherwise I'm going to have to talk to them about how it felt to be sick for a week and stuff. So, I don't think they want to know that. So, Are you all able to see the backups in there? I mean, Madam Chair, your direction, I could, keep going if everybody I can orient everybody to it. And then if you can pull them up individually. But I don't want to move forward if we have to make sure that the public can see them as well. So, okay. And that's where I need to start. But before I do, Madam Chair, could you recognize Assistant Superintendent Jacobson to come to the table as well? So
Definitely. Representative, or
yeah, so yeah,
I just
yeah.
gave you
So,
in a pay
yeah.
grade. It's going to be one of those days.
Still not working? No. Okay. All right. So orient you through the chair, all board members and the public to the first item in the backup, which is the legislative fiscal analyst recommendations for reductions to particular programs. The document is broken up into two segments. The top segment being the minimum school program, and the bottom segment being the State Board of Education line items or programs within that line item. So at this point in time, just recall that there's 8 Public Education Appropriations Committee meetings every legislative session. So we're almost to the halfway through point. And so there's been presentations up to date. And so below that particular document are all the backups on the presentations that have been given thus far by the LFA and our responses to date. We do not speak for the board as staff, so you will see that our recommendations, USB staff recommendations, are in there. And it's here today that we recommend or request actions, which you can see, and there are some motions that can be made, but in order to better increase your understanding of why these motions might be necessary or type of thing, let me walk you through that particular LFA recommendation document. Let's start with the one-time money, or the right-hand column, okay? One-time money is typically money that is, and you know this, we brief you on this every month. It's part of the monthly budget report. One-time money is usually always subject to being, there's terms used like swept, brought back, reallocated, those types of things. Okay, great, here we go. So you'll see in the one-time column there that these are were, as a result of the closing processes, balances left over. And then we work closely with the LFA to ensure that there's a clear understanding of, within a particular program, how much of that one-time money is encumbered or non-encumbered. So at this time, I'd like to go to Superintendent Jacobson and have her just pull out a couple of examples at your direction, Madam Chair, for the good of the group, to increase understanding on the way ahead towards your eventual actions, if any.
Yes, please, go ahead.
So like Deputy Jones had said or mentioned that we do work really closely with the LFA. There is sometimes a timing issue in that. We validate that we do hold those balances and that they are 100% unencumbered. However, between the time that we give them what we have at that time and the time they make their recommendations, sometimes we've encumbered more since then. So you'll note that the 3 that in the one-time column that are highlighted, that's where we kind of have a discrepancy right now, where what they're requesting is not what we have available in balances currently. And in backups, one of our presentations was identifying those. So you'll see that there. We did ask for 2 of them, in particular, school turnaround and student support services, to retain those balances as they have active procurement processes and grant processes going right now and are intended to be encumbered. On the software licenses for early literacy, staff are recommending that that actually be reallocated, that the legislature reallocate those funds. And in that particular one, there's only about 3.8 million unencumbered. And will be presented next week. So are there any questions to that one?
So from a staff perspective, and knowing, trying to keep you all duly informed, and the public and the education community as a whole informed, this is not unique, right? This is a process that happens every year with one-time money. What's a little bit different, and I'll go to the left hand or the middle column, I guess, which is the ongoing funds. All right, this is a little different this year in the sense of how many and how much with the programs. And these are our LFA, Legislative Fiscal Analyst, proposed reductions to these particular programs. Again, focusing on the minimum school program segment at the top half roughly of the document, and then the State Board of Education line item or bottom half or segment of the document. So you can see there's particular highlighted ones in there for your consideration. What happens then is let's just slice out the three CTE ones that the LFA is proposing to PEA to consider to reduce that ongoing funding. So PEA or the legislature allows us as the board to present to them, you know, the background of the program, the differences it's making, those types of things too, and to make a recommendation. So Greg, if you could go to the backup slide titled CTE program, and I'm just using this as an example. Talia and Wendy Morton from our CTE section under the direction of Dr. Voorhees presented these slides in PEA as means to ultimately get to the recommendation that staff are making to you that you recommend to the legislature to sustain the ongoing funding for these programs, right? So again, you know, it's entirely up to you whether you want to action any of these or those aspects of it, but we feel it's really important to ensure that you understand and see what's happening in PEA so that as the elected officials for public education in your respective districts, you can action these or ask any questions, or we can move this along. Because if the process stays true and the schedule stays right, PEA will make motions in their second to the last meeting, typically maybe finalizing them in their last meeting for recommendations to the EAC. And I really think it's a good sign, or it's great that they're willing to listen to you. Well, you know, initially listen to us and listen to you for that you're cognizant of their proposals and that, you know, you have a say in the matter or the processes. And it's at this point that I just have to overly emphasize the fact that revenue is still tight. You'll see the revenue updates that occur in EAC. We'll be providing a more in-depth revenue drill down. Dr. Rodriguez will do that again for you at your February main board meeting. In order to fund even the legally required, for example, the at-risk student incremental increase is a legal mandate, right? The legislature has to fund that. And so that's been estimated, I think, around 26 million. So they're going to have to find 26 million to do that. And it's not that they don't have it, it's just where it is. And it's not a rob Peter to pay Paul or anything like that. It's simply just simple accounting of debits and credits, right? In order to meet the legal requirement to fund this particular program, to ensure that there's enough funding for the mandated 4% increase for the inflationary adjustment to the WPU, those types of things, everything has to balance. And then, of course, all things are considered. This, again, though, is one of the first months where I've seen where there's such or a lot more attention, if you will, on ongoing funds from particular programs. So this is just an example on the CTE one. If we could go back to the original or the first backup documentation, and if
Superintendent, can I?
Sure.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go
online.
ahead.
Can I just,
Yeah.
Member Davis, did you have a question?
My light is haunted. I am in line for a motion, but my question was going back to the last part, so I'm clear. Did you say there are 3 pieces of one-time funds that were requested to be taken back, so to speak, that we are suggesting we change because the amounts are different?
I think
And what
you-
are those specifically again?
So, Madam Chair, what I think you're hearing me say, or what they heard me say, was I referenced the 3 pieces to the CTE piece, and I gave you the example of that. So if you look on this chart, right, it starts at item number 3, 4, and 5.
I think her question was referring the one-time funds and the light didn't go on when
Oh,
when
okay,
Superintendent
okay.
Yeah,
Jacobs-
sorry, it was a while back.
Yeah.
But my
Oh, I see.
question was, are the one-time funds, the school turnaround and student support services, and was there another one?
Yes, it's the
literacy?
software. early
Yeah, if you scroll
literacy
down a little
So
bit.
just those
it's-
three?
It's
Okay,
those
thank
3
you.
highlighted ones. Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood.
But we are not requesting the software. Is that
To
accurate?
retain the software, correct.
Right.
Thank you. You can go ahead.
Okay, so if you go back up, if we can again recognize Assistant Superintendent Jacobson so that she can add or clarify anything I've said related to the ongoing column and the highlighted ones in particular.
Sure. So the highlighted ones that you see on this list demonstrate that they are, this is 100% of the actual appropriation for that program. The ones that are unhighlighted, they're portions. They're smaller portions of the, a lot of the, I think it's important to add that this is a process that the LFA goes through every year. This is, like Deputy Jones mentioned, this isn't new. It's an ongoing process. A lot of times you'll see some of these recommendations that are coming up, they're programs that are sunsetting. And by putting it on their recommendations, it forces the legislature to look at it and make a decision. You know, is the program working the way we want to? Do we want to continue it so that they can take action on it? Other times, some of these, and the software license for early literacy is a perfect example, where we're continually seeing the balances grow. And so a way to do that is to recapture, obviously, the balances, but then also to decrease the ongoing appropriation a little bit in hopes that there's not a continuing growth of the balances. So that's one other thing. Other recommendations that they may make are, you know, based on legislators that are asking questions and they want to know. So sometimes they'll end up on this sheet as well. But that's basically how they come about. So are there any questions?
I'm not seeing any lights, so continue.
So Madam Chair, almost done. In the backups additionally, excuse me, are, you know, I brought up the CTE program presentation that we'd given. To date, we had also given recommendations. So it'd be let's see, open up the third one down. There you go. Yeah. I think this is one of them. Yeah. So this is one that, and you can see the crosswalk, if you will. So here's digital teaching and learning, which is item number 6 on that first backup, right? And so here's what we did as staff with PEA is, you know, we gave them the purpose of the program, how we distribute the funds. Scroll down a little bit, please. And then the impact if there was a funding reduction, right? So just would ask that you know, crosswalk these presentations with that master sheet or the master list, if you will, of the LFA proposed reductions. And then to Assistant Superintendent Jacobson's point, the highlighted ones are the full amounts, right? Because that varies a little bit. But, you know, again, to try to keep you informed, duly informed, and make sure you have as much information as possible to should you choose to take actions today, you have this background information just as PEA was given by the staff, right? It's a timing thing. We have to present to PEA, but then we always try to catch you up in these weekly meetings, if that makes sense, so that everybody's on the same, you know, caught up or on the same playing field going into what eventually will be motions made by PEA. With that, Madam Chair, that concludes this presentation, this agenda item. Unless you want me to go through each one of the present, like this one, for example, slide by slide. But in the interest of time, we can take any questions if you want or your direction.
Do we have any
Oh,
questions?
Wait, one more thing. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
We just have one more thing.
Yes,
Sorry.
please, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I forgot.
You go down to the USDB or USBE staff recommendation.
Yeah.
So on top of the LFA's recommendations, your staff actually goes through and also reviews kind of where we are and the programs. And this particular document, these are programs that have been closed that are still continuing to cover balance or carry balances. And so we're asking for permission to release this information to the LFA and request that the legislature reallocate these balances so that we can close out these programs.
I have a question just to follow up. Are these ones that are not on the staff, the LFA staff recommendations? So these are separate. So this would require a separate motion for us to release those.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You might recall that I believe some of these are like previously, like the 3.26, right?
Yes.
Million for the, rural administrative funding for rural districts. The $300,000 for USDB, is that all on here or?
No,
No, this is
not
the, okay,
reallocations,
that's not the
no.
reallocations. Okay, just
Um,
making sure.
The other programs that are also in here are also programs that are highly restricted, but the balances aren't enough for us to really do anything with. And so therefore they just sit.
I think we have a question from Member Lear.
Yes, it's not like these are secretive balances, but do we have any assurance that if we publicly make an issue of these, they'll be that they'll be used for purposes that the board is interested in or committed to, or is it just we're publicly saying there's all this, not all this money, but there are these funds available, legislature, have your way with it? Do you see what I'm saying?
Mhm. You could make the recommendation, you could direct staff to make the recommendation to the legislature that any balances that you're recommending to be reallocated to the board for one-time purposes.
Or,
I'd
Or-
prefer that, and I know it's just a recommendation, they can
Yeah.
still just say,
Sure.
nope, you snooze, you lose, too
Mhm.
bad.
Yes.
But I would feel better about that, and in speaking to our education partners, yes, this money was not spent, but we tried very hard to get it back into your hands.
yeah, and Madam Chair, if I may, if you go back to the original or the first backup. I mean, it's, and Chair Hymas, board leadership, superintendent can correct me if I'm wrong, but there have been indications from PEA members that they would like to know if any of these ongoing balances would be supported by the board to be used towards any of your top 10 ongoing requests, right? Those types of things. I think that's what Board Member Lair was asking as well. So you could, just as Assistant Superintendent Jacobson articulated, that's certainly part of the budget setting process, right? Is your consideration and then your direction if that, or, you can simply say, well, no, we'd like to keep these and that our requests be funded with all new money. So, I mean, that's your prerogative. And that's exactly, and so I so appreciate the question is why we're here today,
And
is so that you can do that
just
if
to
you
follow
like.
up briefly, is
Yes.
that okay?
Yes.
I'm not prepared to say which of the
Sure.
top 10 this should be directed to, but I think that's also a good idea, maybe a little less greedy than, we want all of this and more, but being a little more purposeful with our requests. So I like the idea, but I wouldn't be prepared to know which program it would be best directed to today.
That concludes our briefing or update, right? Yep.
Thank you both. We currently have a machine that is rebooting in terms of
Oh.
turning your microphones on. So we can't tell whether you have a light on, and we don't know how to turn your mics on.
Turn it off.
Carol's, I know, and so we have.
Sorry.
So if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Okay, Member Bogus, I did see you reach for your mic about 3 or 4 minutes ago. I know you were first, and then Member Davis, but if you may have to use, can you go to,
We have 2 members online. Please
will you
use
go
the mic.
to, yes, will you
At the
please?
table, that's fine too. Okay, yeah, we will not call you representative, maybe.
So Superintendent Jones, while sitting in your chair, I just would like some clarity for myself and for the public. The school building program, is that the same money that we see going to like the overwhelming growth in Eagle Mountain and those types of projects?
Can we turn them on? Okay, we have found out how to turn them on.
We're back.
We're back. So thank you.
I'm gonna open.
Okay, Member Bogus, you may need to repeat that. We have fixed it. We are online. I'm sorry.
All is well. Superintendent Jones, I had asked, line item 15, is that the same money that we have spoken about before that handles our overwhelming growth in places such as Eagle Mountain and other schools where we've got?
Yeah.
The capital outlay.
Where's Sam?
I just want to make certain that my brain and the spreadsheet are on the same page.
I think the answer is yes, but may we, Madam Chair, let Sam think about it for a little longer? Do that, so.
Yes, we'll go to
Yeah.
Member Davis and then
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
return
pretty
back
sure
to
it
that
is.
I think if
question.
Sam has to think about it, I'm glad I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Member Davis, I apologize for all the inconveniences.
Hi, Rod. Barge my way into your space. Can we make motions right now on this?
Yes, this is an
Are-
time
are
for
we open
action or
still?
questions.
Okay,
Yes.
I didn't know. I have a two-part motion. I move that the board approve the legislative staff recommendations to reallocate one-time funding balances identified for existing and closed programs, except for programs identified by USBE staff that do not have the correct balances due to currently encumbered funds, which include the school turnaround and leadership development and the student support services.
All right, do you want to do both or you do them separately?
I have a quick question on that motion. I thought I heard something about literacy. So for Deborah and Scott, did I need to add literacy to that list?
No, because that particular program, even though the balances are a little bit different, and we'll report that to PEA next week.
They'll be reallocated.
There's only about 3.8. We're good with them
Okay.
reallocating that.
Okay. And then the second part of my motion is that I move that the board recommend that the legislature sustain ongoing funding for the items highlighted for review by legislative staff.
Could we have the motion all the way down? Thank you. Is there a second to Member Davis's motion? Second by Member Booth. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yeah, I appreciate, and I think that we need to constantly be working with our legislative fiscal analysts and looking at all of our budgets. And I think the one-time allocations are, ones that we can support. I think that you have to be really careful with the ongoing allocations because you can't run schools and programs with finite stops. And I think overall, our whole, if I remember right, agency was only moving forward like 4% or something, but you've got encumbered funds, you've got pieces in motion, you have a lot of things going on with ongoing funds. So I think that we can support the pulling back of one-time funds and need to also support the continuation of the one-time funds. I mean, of the ongoing funds, sorry.
Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. So I don't know if it was the intent of Member Davis to run these as a singular motion, but If they are separate, that's great. And if they are a single motion, I would move to divide.
In the interest of time, let's make them two separate motions.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pending no objections, we'll move those. You second it. We will separate those into two motions. Okay? Okay. So Christian. Okay. I'm not seeing any other lights, so we will go ahead and vote on number 1, that we move that the board support the legislative staff recommendations to reallocate one-time funding balances identified for existing and closed programs, except for programs identified by USBE staff that do not have the correct balances due to currently encumbered funds, the school turnaround and leadership development, and the student support services. So, seeing all, we will go ahead with a vote. Member Bogus. Member Bollinger.
Yes.
Member Booth.
Yes.
Member Brinton. Member Davis. Member Earl. Member Green. Member Hall. Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hymas.
Yes.
Member Kelly. Member Carey. Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Reel. I am a yes. Member Kelly, is he still online?
Yes.
Okay, and is your vote a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. That vote is unanimous. Okay, pending are there any questions?
Comment or question from Cindy?
Okay. No? Your mic just starts going on and off. All right, we'll move to, seeing no other lights, we'll move to our second motion, which is that the board recommend that the legislature sustain ongoing funding for all items highlighted for review by legislative staff. Okay, Member Rill? Member Lear? Yes, Member Carey? Member Kelly?
No.
Member Hymas? Member Hart?
No.
Member Hall? Member Green? Member Earl? Member Davis? Member Brinton? Member Booth? Member Bollinger?
Yes.
Member Bogus? And I am a yes. Member Lair?
Yes.
Okay, that motion, I believe, fails, 7-8. The yeses being Bollinger, Booth. Oh, with one abstention. Thank you. 7-7 with one abstention. The yeses being Bollinger, Booth, Davis, Earl, Lear, Sreel, and Wood. Okay. With one abstention of Member Carey. Member Earl.
Yeah, can you put up the third motion? Are we not doing that? Yeah, I
Yes.
would, what's that?
Yes.
Okay, I move that, yes,
Ma'am?
Yes.
So,
Superintendent Jones.
just to clarify the results of the last motion, the implication in my mind of that is that the board has just given the authorization to you don't give them authorization, but basically to cancel those programs, or what is the,
The ramification is that the board, that you cannot speak for those programs in behalf of the board,
the staff cannot?
the staff
Okay,
cannot.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that the board did not move as a whole, that we wanted all of that funding. What may happen is that we'll have to move forward with looking at individual programs such as Member Representative Peterson is running a bill right now to avoid the sunset of some of those programs that are on there. And
Right.
so if we were to support her bill, we would then need to look at that funding that we just chose not to
Okay,
move forward.
Okay,
as I see it.
okay, thank you, Matt. It's just important as staff that
You have,
we follow your lead
Okay.
and support your direction,
No.
so. yeah.
okay.
Thank you so much.
Member Lair.
I,
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Member Earl has a.
yeah, I move that the board oppose the legislative staff recommendation to reallocate the USDB capital project funds.
Okay, there is a motion that the board oppose the legislative staff recommendation to reallocate the USDB capital project funds. Is there a second to that motion?
I don't know.
There's a second by Vice Chair Hart. Any discussion to that motion? Yes,
My question was related to the previous statement
I
by,
recognize
Are we
that
gonna
the
come
floor,
back?
yes, I will come back to you. The floor
Thank
was open for Member Earl,
okay, thank you.
so I apologize.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
Did it get
you're gonna
seconded?
Speak to that. Yes, it did.
Okay. Just a couple things. We've been working on this. This money's been allocated for several years. It was held based on further research. Several studies were run last year. All those studies indicated that there was a need for various growth projects. Specifically, this was intended for the Salt Lake area. And to wait longer, I just think that the need is there. And to reallocate those funding, that money somewhere else, it needs to be spent here. This is where this money needs to go. So
Thank you. Any comments to that? Vice Chair Hart.
I seconded that motion because I have read those reports. However, I do think that there is work still to be done by this board and USDB to put some details behind their planning and to continue strategic planning, really. And I look forward to seeing the results of those plans. So while 3 different reports have said that they have space needs, perhaps even greater than what is allocated here, I still feel that there is a gap in envisioning by this board what the future of that growth looks like. And I want it on record that we need to put in words what it looks like, who it serves, in what capacity, and some of those other details. So while I second the motion and I very much do think that this needs to happen, I also know that there's further action that needs to be taken in order to move forward with this project in the USDB planning and in our leadership and visioning for the students in our state served by the USDB. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a notification, members, those reports are in your backup. They are confidential because some of the reports called out some safety issues that they saw, and we don't want to make that public to our public. So, but they are there labeled confidential for you to read and understand why this motion is being made. Member Booth.
I just wanted, in response to Vice Chair Hart's comments, to assure the board that earlier this week we had our first meeting of the USDB Standing Committee, and I thought it was a very healthy discussion, and I can see many more hours coming that direction, and the concerns that Vice Chair Hart has raised, which are very legitimate, I think are going to be dealt with in a timely manner. And I'm grateful for the leadership and the vision of our board leadership, who saw the need for more intensive consideration of their needs. And I think they're going to be met in these regular ongoing meetings. Thank you very much.
Member Bogus. Okay. Member Bollinger.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate that the same sentiments that when we're using these public dollars, we definitely want to make sure that they are being used fiscally responsibly, and that I would like to see kind of a plan moving forward of how these are going to support. Obviously, it sounds like there's been discussions about a need, but I would like to see in writing in the near future how we're going to use these effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that
So she's got a
Member
motion.
Green? Or no, that's still her. Okay. All right, I think we're ready to vote then. We'll move ahead. So the motion is that the board recommend that the legislature sustain ongoing funding for, number 3, oppose the legislative staff recommendation to reallocate the USDB capital project funds. Member Booth. Member Brinton. Member Davis. Member Earl. Member Green. Member Hall. Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Chair Hymas.
Yes.
Member Kelly.
Yes.
Member Carey. Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Real. I'm a yes. Member Bogus. Member Bollinger.
Yes.
Member Davis. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. We'll go back to Member Lear's question and then Member Bogus for a motion.
Your light, so I know which seat you're at, please, Carol.
I hope I can remember it, and it's not quite as timely now, but I wanted to clarify Scott's comment about the board not speaking, or the staff not speaking to any of these issues that now the board has voted by majority vote to defund. So how does that play out when we've set our priorities as a board, but now undermined the funding? What's the message of that or the picture of that for legislators? Are you able to speak to that? Because to me, that sends a very contradictory message, and that troubles me, and especially puts the staff in a awkward position.
Representative Jones.
So, okay. To answer Board Member Lear's question, we actually do need that level of clarity, because it is what it is, and that is that PEA will be taking these actions. And so to know specifically or your direction on what the, role or input of staff is well received. I mean, that clarity is appreciated. As it relates to the aspect or piece to the question about, well, does it undermine the process or maybe the request that you're asking for? No, I don't believe it does, because we're only talking about those specific items there. So the inference to me, or the implication of that, is that we can continue with the rest of the discussions and, do along those lines, just as long as we are cognizant of just those particular ones that you action today. Does that help answer the question? I don't think it'll be perceived as an undermine.
Okay, that does help.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
So,
Yes, please.
let me, sorry, I
Oh,
spoke
did
too
you have a
soon. I
follow-up?
had a little bit of
Okay.
an extension of that.
Yes.
So can we clarify then, can you list by names which ones would be, which staff would be precluded from talking about?
We'd have to go back so I could make sure I can see the programs, but I can do that. The two, was 3 of them, right? Yeah, so CTE would be Dr. Voorhees, myself, the CTE team leads, or, Talia, Wendy,
Can't
and.
support those. You can't support that. The staff could not support that, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then, does somebody have the motion or the document? I remember the CTE one specifically. But let's see. School turnaround would be, who would school turnaround be? That would be CTE, so flexible allocation would be me, that's part, and Sam. Okay. Oh, okay.
DTO. Everything's got an ongoing.
Yeah, so CTE, DTL, right? Flexible allocation, grants for professional learning, student health and counseling support. What's the other one? Oh, right, sped impact aid, and then capital outlay and growth. Yes, sped. Well, the impact aid specifically within sped, not the whole of sped, right? Yes, Madam Chair. So, yeah,
Am I accurate in saying the ones that are in pink, that is their total amount of funding? So when they pull that ongoing funding, there is no longer funding for that program to exist.
correct.
So just for further information for our
Yeah,
board.
that is what Assistant Superintendent Jacobson emphasized by highlighting them. So that makes us feel good that we called that out and we see the correlation. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Chair Hymas.
Scott, can you pull the motion back up? Put that back on the
Greg,
screen.
yeah, Greg can, yes, sir.
So maybe I'm just misreading this or reading it a different way here, but we're saying that the board, we move so essentially we're saying we move that the board does not recommend, or actually we're saying nothing, right? We didn't take any action on this. We're just saying that you as staff cannot go and say, the board recommends that legislators sustain ongoing funding for all items highlighted. We're not saying that you can't have conversations about this. When you work with the PEA or whoever, you can talk about these things and say, yeah, this is how we help. And this is what I'm getting feedback from legislators is how does this help, and do we need to maintain this? There's nothing in here that says staff can't say, yeah, it'd be helpful, and here's why. There is something in here that we voted against this bill. Again, leveling, it just says you can't, you're not, it doesn't say anything actually. It just says that this didn't pass. So you can still have those conversations, but from what what I'm understanding is legislators want to know where the money is going and how, and if this ongoing needs to continue. Now, if staff says, yeah, here's how, and the legislator says, that makes sense to me, I want to continue it, that's great. This is how I read it, and I can't speak for all other 14, but the work still proceeds. We as a board just aren't doing this blanket statement of saying, yeah, we want you to sustain all this funding for these items here. Is that, and again, just speaking for me, others can speak for themselves, but that's how I read this motion.
Madam Chair, I read it, so I asked for that clarification because I read it similarly too. It's just that it's just a position aspect, right? It's not, I can't go in there and say, absolutely, heck no, we won't go, that type of thing. I can, yeah, so I see what Chair Hymas is trying to clarify. If Representative Thompson says to me, Scott, tell me, a little bit more about the CTE piece to that, tell him, I say, hey, sir, I can't, there's no way, I'm not going to talk to you, talk to the hand or something, no way, I'm not going to do that. However, I'm not going to, I'm clearer, based on this conversation on doing that. So, I really don't think it's going to undermine our relationship or inhibit it. It just helps us as staff to make sure that, we know where things are at with you. It doesn't mean it can't change or, those types of things. So does that help, Madam Chair, to Chair Hymas's statement and everybody else too?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
And I
all
hope
right.
I was not misclear in that. My
No,
direction was,
you
it's
weren't.
just no position of the board.
Right.
That's the
Yeah,
bottom line.
yeah,
Okay, we have
yeah.
Superintendent Dixon, and then we have Member Davis. And we are over time on this budget item, so just to move forward. Okay, yes, and we're waiting for. Okay,
I just want to be clear. Thank you. I just want to be clear because we have staff listening. So if any of us are approached by a legislator, which I have been approached 3 times this morning to ask about these items, what happens if this doesn't get funded? The backup that has been provided, as Deputy Jones just indicated, we can still speak to that backup. correct? Okay, it's not that we're advocating a board position, we're just stating the facts as what is already in the backup. I just want to clarify that because I know we'll have staff ask about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to make it really clear that if we're asked in a public meeting or otherwise, does your board support these funds for in CTE, special education, digital teaching learning, these other things? Your answer will be no. We took a motion, do we support these ongoing funds? And the answer was no. So I want the public to be clear. I just came from a meeting from a high school this morning where the high school was talking to all the parents about the CTE options and the CTE opportunities. And I want those parents to be clear that this board did not support that. I really think people need to know that we can't just make a vote and think, well, there may not be any implications, or this is, there will be, and yes, you can still give information, what will be the ramifications if this isn't funded. But if someone says, does your board or did your board support this? The answer would be no.
Thank you.
Understand that when we have a vote 7-7 and one abstention, that the 7 that are voting against that are making it impossible for that to really move forward, no matter whether staff is speaking to it or anybody else is speaking to it. And I know, having served at a local board for 16 years, that the CTE programs are critical, are such an important part. And we are saying, work it out, figure out whether we can handle, whether we can continue this or not. It's not a priority. In saying 7-7 and one abstention, we have got to be clearer in our direction. And if that really is where we stand, then I support you, and that's great. But we've got to understand that voting, a complete split vote like that, is saying, whatever you do will be fine. And I'm here to tell you that those specific items that were outlined as being affected, if we don't get the ongoing funding, it won't be fine for children in our state. Thank you.
Member Hart.
So to be clear, I don't have enough information to vote to support or not support when I made my vote. And I'm not going to vote to support something that I don't have all the information on. So there are people making a lot of assumptions about what a no vote is. I clearly, as one member, need to go and find out information to find out whether or not I support it or not. But with the information I have right now, I am not just going to say, yes, go support this, because I don't know if I do or not. So it's not a no. It is I am not prepared to vote yes. But that is my prerogative as a voting member, and that is every board member's prerogative to do so. Now, whether or not we do, I rely on CTE funds. I'm a former CTE teacher. Does that mean that this is the right way to move forward with CTE funding? I do not know yet. So I need more information to make an informed vote. So to clarify why I would vote no, that is my position.
Yes, if I can direct this to Superintendent Jones through.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out the numbers, and maybe this might help other listeners understand this as well.
Sure.
Looking at this spreadsheet, we've got, I'm gonna use yours.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Could we pull that up then?
So we've got the tune of 6 million in funding specifically for the CTE programs. Is 6 million just from the spreadsheet, the total funding for CTE?
No.
Okay.
So Madam Chair, the answer is no, it's not the total funding for CTE. We're talking about these three, for lack of a better term, components or programs within CTE that would be reduced.
Which
done.
could make, to Vice Chair Hart's point, there's specific purposes and reasons for this funding. Is that correct?
That is correct. And Madam Chair, through you, this is precisely why I took the time to bring up the CTE deeper dive presentation slides, is so that you would, have the opportunity to review those, to answer your questions, or to be more informed about, making a decision. So
Thank
does
you.
that help answer Board Member Green's questions?
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Member Davis.
Can you pull the language of the motion back up?
Sure.
The language of the motion that I made was that the legislature sustain ongoing funding for these for these items that are highlighted. And I think, our messaging is really crucial because and maybe I need to word the motion differently, or should have worded the motion in a way that helps the public understand, or gives every member in here an opportunity to say, do I support CTE? Because we certainly know what CTE is. And so maybe that's a conversation we need to have at another agenda item at another time, so people can have the full ability to explain themselves. The hardest thing about being on this board is being misunderstood. But the other hardest thing about on this board is not understanding unintended consequences of votes taken that might seem small to us, but when the messaging goes out, it can have big consequences. And it precludes our staff from saying that we support certain things. Thanks.
Member Earl.
I either want a point of order. We're out of order. This item has already been discussed. We shouldn't have bring it back up anyways. It's done. And the other thing is, I would either call for orders of the day, or if we're done, let's move forward. There's more things to be done.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to Member Bongus.
I apologize. Thank you, Chair. I move that the board direct our USBE staff to compile a report to the board regarding the use of the $29 million requested of the legislature for expansion and growth, and bring it to the board next week or by February 5 for review in next week's packet.
Okay, wait. Do you have a second? Okay, a second by Member Green. There's a motion that the board direct USDB staff to complete a report to the board regarding the use of the $29 million requested of the legislature for expansion and growth, and bring it to the board next week or by February 5th for review. Is there any questions or discussions to this motion? You may speak to it.
I'm happy to speak to it. I just think this motion encompasses the concerns that Member Hart articulated. And I do believe, based on what I have read in many of the previous months, that a lot of this stuff is already available, that there is a plan, there's an active plan for that money, and that we can have that compiled into a singular document so that we are all more aware. Thank you, ma'am.
Member Earl.
Yeah, I might have an amendment to this. Well, did it get seconded?
It did.
Right, okay. Sorry. By next week would be just unrealistic. There's both of you, both of you, whoever you two are. The board has access to that information. It's something that's been worked on. The USDB actually put together a Salt Lake plan. They were asked to do that, but it never got brought up in the December meeting for one of those acronyms.
Yes.
So it was EAC or PAC. So I think I agree with this. We needed to have a clear plan. I just think that the time frame here is just unattainable. So maybe the motion is, I don't know,
Once. We are way past time, and if anyone wants to make motions regarding legislation, we need to move on.
So maybe make a report, compile the documents, but if we get them into one place, we've addressed the issues and we can better communicate with our legislators. Unfortunately, Civic Clerk is not a very good searchable database. And to go and find all that stuff is actually quite cumbersome. If we had a series of links and a one-page report that linked us out, we would all have the information that Member Hart has discussed that we need.
Well, I did put those reports in backup. They are there. Yeah, under item 2.1, the reports are there.
Everything she discussed?
Yeah. Oh, no, there is no strategic. This is the board, the reports from the legislature that are recommending the building.
I'm not talking about a strategic plan.
Okay, is there,
I have I have an amendment to the motion. It would be to strike after board,
okay,
the rest of that sentence.
just go ahead again. Not sure. Oh, the time frame. Is that looking correct? Member Earl, is that correct?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, is there a second? We have a second to that. Is there any discussion to that? Member Davis, is this to this? Okay, Member Earl, are you speaking to this?
Yeah, if we're asking for talking points, is that what maybe I'm misunderstanding? That's different. And I think USDB could provide us with a general one pager, if I was understanding Board Member Bogus. But to actually have a plan in place and have the provisions, I think it's going to take longer than a week or two. It'll probably take a couple of weeks, couple of meetings, and that will come before the board. I'd be in support of that. I think this isn't kind of an unrealistic piece. The other thing is one other item. Most likely this will be voted on in the next week, or at least considered prior to our next meeting. So I think we could ask Superintendent Coleman maybe to put some talking points together if people are interested in talking with people about it. So.
Yes, USDB goes before you, PEA next Wednesday. Okay, Member Davis.
Why, it doesn't seem like the motion that Member Bogus made is asking for a full strategic plan and such. It sounds like she just wants a report of just kind of a more condensed report, Chair. If I'm understanding the motion, she wants something that's a little more user-friendly and it would be helpful in full board because we have more time. But, you know, we do have a lot of this already, and we've been able to study a lot of this already. My only lingering question is, since it's been going on for so long, how do inflation impact what we're currently doing and asking for? How do, you know, supply costs, you know, I just, if we do this for next week, I would like some of those new pieces added, not the things that we've already had, but some of those new pieces added.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Vice Chair Wood, you may have answered this, but USDB appears before PEA, what did you say, Wednesday?
Next week.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're back to the main motion, I guess this is to a motion to amend to strike next week or by February 5th for new in next week's packet. So the motion will read, that the board direct USDB staff to complete a report to the board regarding the use of the $29 million requested of the legislature for expansion and growth. And bring it back to the board. So we'll go ahead with the vote. Member Earl. On your amendment. Okay, Member Green. Oh, I went to the other side. Sorry. Member Carey. On the motion to amend.
Can you come back to me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Member Lear. Motion to amend.
I know, yes.
Member Rill.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Member Bogus.
No.
Member Bollinger.
No.
Motion, Member Booth.
Yes.
Member Brenton.
No.
Member Davis.
No.
Member Green.
No.
Member Hall.
No.
Member Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Chair Hymas.
Yes.
Member Kelly.
No.
Member Carey.
No.
Okay. I have 8 noes, 7. I have that motion passes 8-7. The noes being Bogus, Bollinger, Brinton, Davis, Green, Hall, Kelly, Carey. All right, this is back to the main motion then as amended. Move that the board direct USDB staff to complete a report to the board regarding the use of the $29 million requested of the legislature for expansion and growth and bring it to the board. Member Bogus.
Yes.
Of order?
Yes.
Oh, I thought Board Member Earl wanted to speak to the motion.
I have one quick question. Can you just clarify to me, and maybe I'm misinterpreting what report is. Is it okay to just articulate what a report would entail so that because I'm looking at a massive something, maybe I'm not interpreting what your definition would be.
Before answering that, most of you are on hot mics, so I'm not turning them off and back on again. All right? So just be careful of side conversations. You've been warned. Go ahead.
I won't call anyone any names, Chair Hymas.
Okay.
I don't care if it's a 1-page document. I don't care if
Okay.
it's a 5-page document. I'm not expecting anything obnoxious, but I think it is important that we have clarity because this is not chump change and it's money that the legislature does not want to give that we would like to advocate for. And we need to have clarity when we go and have these conversations without, if you've ever tried to speak with a legislator with, you know, a 400-page document or 6 different reports, it just leads to confusion, chaos, and usually everybody leaves the room and goes, uh-huh. We need simplicity here, and we need to make certain that we can move forward and advocate for this appropriately and effectively.
Thanks. That added some additional clarification. I don't think I understood it that way originally, so thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, we'll continue with the vote. So Member Bogus was a yes. Member Bollinger.
Yes.
Booth.
Yes.
Member Brenton.
Yes.
Member Davis. This is the motion to have a report brought to the board.
There was no substitute, there was a standalone.
Nobody moved that.
I don't know what you're
Yes.
talking about.
Did anybody move? this?
Member Earl.
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Member Hall.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Member Hymas.
Yes.
Member Kelly.
Yes.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Rill. Yeah. And I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously.
1 second.
All right, I think we are complete with our budget items unless there are any other. No lights. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Can we just take a brief second for Sam to answer Board Member
Yes,
Vargas's
thank
earlier
you.
question, just real
Yes,
quick?
thank you
Sorry
for
about
keeping me
that.
on track. No problem.
A little slow, NyQuil. So,
Yes, about the capital growth funds.
yeah, your question then.
Number 16.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, go ahead, yeah.
So there is a capital outlay foundation program and a capital outlay enrollment growth program. The enrollment growth program is intended for districts that are growing. So the LFA recommendation is to take that 5.6 million away. Statewide enrollment is dropping. Currently, Alpine School District is getting the most of that. Davis School District is getting quite a bit. Iron School District, Nebo School District, and some of the other smaller districts. So that's the piece that they're recommending be taken.
And also, if I may, Madam Chair, I think there's still one more motion related to this agenda item about permission to release the,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
Is there
to the
someone
FA, so
willing to
sorry.
make the motion to release those the funds for the closed, to reallocate the closed
We
funds?
pull that back up to
It was that
reorient.
final graph that we were, table that we were shown. Those are recommendations by the staff, that those are closed programs. We have no access to the money. Would somebody willing to make a motion? Okay, Member Green.
Let me call back.
Make a motion that the board directs staff to release the list. Oh, is that the right one? Release the list of USBE staff recommendations for fund reallocations to LFA staff.
Okay, second by Member Davis. Any discussion to that motion? Do you want to speak to it? Okay, seeing no lights, we will move to a vote. Member Rill.
Come back to me.
Hey, Member Lear.
Oh, you keep throwing me off. Yes.
I'm a yes too. Real is yes.
Okay, Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Kelly.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Chair Hymus.
Yes.
Member Hall.
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Member Earl.
Yes.
Member Davis. Okay,
Davis.
Member Brenton.
Yes.
Member Booth.
Yes.
Member Bollinger.
Yes.
Member Bogus.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
I'm a yes, that motion passes unanimously. Yes. Do you have a point of order, Member Davis?
It was this part in the pink. Do we need that or do we not need it is my question. I mean, it seems pretty important.
Oh, that was critical. It was an ask to, and I guess whether we need to define that, there was a request discussed with Member Lear regarding that funds be reallocated to our priorities.
So if you want to include that in the motion,
Did you
we
want to
can do
include that, Member Green? Yes. So since anyone on the prevailing side can reconsider that motion, and we were all on the, so I just need someone to reconsider the motion, add in the remaining of the motion, and we'll vote again. Okay, all right, so we'll make it a new. Okay. Is there, so Member Davis, do you want to make that motion?
I move that the board request that the funds be reallocated to the board or toward the board's top 10 funding items.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, that motion is second. Any discussion to that item? Okay, seeing no lights. Oh, Member Earl,
What is the amount?
can someone bring up the table?
That's not that.
53?
53,600,000.
No, that's
No,
not.
that's not the
it's
right one.
That's the one.
There we go.
451 million?
It's 1,000. 451,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
260.
We always do everything in millions.
Yeah.
I was like, that is a lot.
451,000
But usually it's 28
in millions.
millions,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
I was
that's what I
looking up
want to
at the
make sure.
top. Yep.
That answered my question. Thank you. I'm ready to vote.
All right, we're ready to vote. So the motion is that the board requests that the funds be reallocated to the board or toward one of the board's top 10 funding items. Member Bogus.
Thank you. So would be more than smitten if the legislature directed this funding back to our discretionary funds or something, but as a general rule, I'm a no on this motion.
You're a no.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Member Bollinger.
Yes.
Member Booth. Member Brenton.
Come back to me.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Earl.
I'm thinking.
Oh,
Okay. Member Green. Member Hall.
Who decides which one of those?
The
legislature.
legislature would choose what they do, and it's only a recommendation. They're going to do exactly what
Or
they
whatever they
want to.
Okay. Yes.
Yes, okay. Vice Chair Hart.
No.
Chair Hymas.
Yes.
Member Kelly.
Yes.
Member Carey. Member Lear.
Yes.
Member Rill.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Member Brenton.
Abstain.
Member Earl.
Yes.
Member Green.
No.
Member Carey.
Dane.
All right. 10 yeses, 3 noes, and 2 abstentions. The noes are Bogus, Green, Vice Chair Hart. The abstentions are Brenton and Carey. That motion passes. We can move on to our next item. Deputy Superintendent Nui, welcome.
Thank you. Would you like to move on to motions just in light of the time?
Yeah, we'll go ahead with motions, and
Okay.
if you have questions on the bills in
I'm here to answer.
play, then we'll follow up with those. That may be the best way to move forward, so. Okay, so we are going to skip the legislative review, and you do it during our motion time, pending motions that that have questions about bills if there are motions. Is that clear? Okay. Vice Chair Hart.
Yes, I move that we oppose SB 111 pending further changes.
Okay, we have a motion to oppose SB 111 pending further changes. Is there a second to that? Okay, we have a second to Member Booth. Any discussion to that? Well, please speak to it first.
Yeah, the way it's written, it is not acceptable. The bill has a number of confusing items, contradictions. I think things need to be a little bit more crystal clear, as you can see by my votes today. I think we need to be more exact. And that bill as written is unclear in its intent, and without further changes would put us in a position where we really don't know which direction to go. I just think it's unclear, it's contradictory, and there's just no way to be successful as a board with the modifications that 111 brings to the code.
Member Carey.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to postpone Member Hart's motion and if appropriate, speak to it.
Okay, we have a motion to,
Postpone till our next legislative board
okay,
meeting
I have a
here.
motion to postpone. Is there a second to that? Okay, second.
Point of clarification. Member Carey, you said our next legislative meeting, so that would be in 2 weeks from now. Is that, just want to make sure that I'm gathering that. Is that what your intent is?
No, thank you, Chair. It'd be our next board meeting.
Okay, so in our legislative portion of the board meeting, is that? Okay,
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, do any,
So did he?
do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, please. I just want to echo what Vice Chair Hart was saying about SB 111. And if I had to vote on it today, my vote would be in opposition to it. But Senator Milner, who was my senator for several years, she has been very willing to meet with myself and other members of the board to discuss the areas of concern. And she's actually meeting with several members of the board today. And just because she has been acting in good faith, meeting with us and with an attitude of how can we work through this, I would just want to recognize that by postponing this motion. And if we're unsuccessful in making those changes, then this can come up and the board can state its will. But while she's working with us in good faith, I would just ask that we postpone this until our next board meeting. Thank you.
Member Ballinger.
I would like to know if staff can clarify or give us some feedback on when this bill is scheduled to be heard. I know that things move fast in the legislature, so I see that there are concerns about this bill. I'd hate for us to have an opportunity to have a full board discussion if it's going to hit in discussion in a committee meeting before then. So is staff available to answer that question?
Superintendent Nui, do you have any?
Oh, sorry. My understanding is that she's holding on to it and that it's not going forward until she's worked through these things. Is that the understanding of those who have worked with her as well? Okay.
Okay, Member Davis.
I support the motion. I think that a motion on the floor basically to oppose still sends a message. It allows people to communicate. If anybody asks, what is the board thinking? Well, there's a motion on the floor to oppose currently pending conversations with both Senator Milner and Representative Thurston, who've been, good to visit with the board. So I think this is probably the best way forward to sort of meet the needs of both worlds at this time.
Member Lair.
I would reluctantly support the motion to delay. However, I would hope, this is not a motion, just a hope, that the discussions, I've not been invited to be part of these meetings, but I would hope the message to the sponsors is that all parts of the bill are under discussion, because I don't feel like it is a completely good faith discussion if the message is these things are not open to discussion. Rather, we'll talk to you about these things, but not those. So I hope that the message is to the sponsors that all parts of the bill might be open to give and take and discussion.
Okay, Vice Chair Hart.
Oh, shoot. I thought I had one more person for me. So it would have been my preference to simply vote on it, and then obviously we could change our position if things changed. My message is, needs to be clear, not just to the sponsor, but to any other legislator that is discussing this or looking at this. The bill is just unacceptable in its current form. And so I think we always have the right to change. And I think our board needs to send a clear message unequivocally. I think our board has spent enough time not saying things in the clearest way possible. And that's why I made the motion I did. Sure, we can postpone it. That's fine. The motion still sits on the table. I'm fine with that. But I think the message needs to be very clear that it is unacceptable, and that we do have positions about such things, and we do have the ability to govern strongly as a board. And it's really hard to separate the signal from the noise during the legislative session. And the message I want to make is that it's unacceptable as a bill. So postpone, fine, but that the bill is not acceptable.
I have no other lights, so I will move to a vote. Oh, okay, your light was not on.
Had to reach it with my cell phone.
Member Bogus.
So I see the wisdom in Member Carey's motion. And I also see the wisdom in Member Hart's words. And there is some policy that is brought forth in all halls of government that cannot be amended into good public policy. And I just think this is one of those pieces of policy that it's not redeemable. And the few redeeming qualities that it might have are not going to play out in their logical conclusion. And so they have not been fully thought through. And so I see both, but I most definitely see Member Hart's assertion that we need to be decisive, we need to act with clarity. And if the concern is that we wibble wobble and waver all the time, by postponing this, we're sending nothing other than another message that we're willing to wibble wobble and waver. And so I would support Member Hart in her assertions that maybe we need to move on this today and have a clear decision. However, I do see the wisdom in Member Carey's words. So thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Member Bogus, motion to postpone.
No.
Member Bollinger,
No.
Member Booth, Member Brinton,
No.
Member Davis,
This is to postpone? Yes.
Member Earl,
Yes.
Member Green,
No.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart,
No.
Chair Hymas,
Yes.
Member Kelly,
No.
Member Carey,
Yes.
Member Lear,
Yes.
Member Real. I'm a yes. Member Booth.
Yes.
Okay. 8, 9, 6. Okay, that motion passes 9-6. The noes are Bogus, Bollinger, Brinton, Green, Vice Chair Hart, and Kelly. Okay, Member Earl.
Yeah, I have a happy motion.
Okay.
If you go down a little further, it's just a couple of bills, maybe trying to offer a little bit of support for some bills that are moving through. So my motion is that the board supports the following: House Bill 228, Public Education Immunization Amendments, House Bill 209, Second Substitute Homeschool Amendments, and House Bill 442, First Substitute English Learner Amendments, House Bill 184, School Trust Lands Amendments.
You have a second? Second. Okay, there's a second. Member Bogus. Oh, sorry, you need to speak to it.
Yeah, I think just listening to these bills and going through these items seem to be, to me, some positive direction forward. So, and yeah, I don't know, I guess if anyone had questions on specific ones, but.
Okay. Yes.
I would move to divide.
Okay, there is a motion to divide. Is there any objection for us to divide? Is there a need to have to vote to divide if there's no objection? All right, we're going to vote on these one by one. Is there any discussion to an individual bill or any clarification that any of you need? Member
Brief
Lear.
summary from, what's our wonderful deputy's name?
Deputy,
Elise.
we discussed this motion. She is prepared for the speed dating of
The
motion
wonderful,
delivery.
let me just put it this way, the wonderful deputy from the USBE.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So should we take the first one, public education immunization amendments?
Yes.
Okay. So this is from Representative Lisenby. It just currently, if a parent decides to opt out of immunizations or provide a waiver get a waiver for immunizations, that would have to be obtained every time a student leaves a school and attends another school. So this takes away that requirement and requires that schools pass that information on if a student moves, that waiver follows the student.
Member Davis, is that?
I was just going to say, and this was last time too, if members are going to bring lots of lists of multiple bills, it's really helpful if we know the day before so we can read the whole bill. I voted no last time because I didn't have time to read the bills. I didn't know. So just, it's really helpful in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Member Lair.
And I'm concerned with the problems we've already discussed and experienced with LEAs promptly communicating student records back and forth, especially with 160 LEAs, that that doesn't happen as efficiently as it needs to. And so I think that could cut both ways. And I'm not okay with this decision until we are have a better, more stable communication system among LEAs.
All right, I'm not seeing any more lights. We'll move to a vote. This is a motion to support HB 228, Public Education Immunization Amendments. Okay. Member Brinton. Member Davis.
Not until I read it. Thanks.
Okay. Member Earl.
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
Member Hall.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart.
Yes.
Chair Hymas.
Yes.
Member Kelly.
Yes.
Member Carey.
Yes.
Member Lear.
No.
Member Real.
No.
I'm a yes. Member Bogus.
Yes.
Member Bollinger.
Yes.
And Member Booth.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 13-2, or 3, sorry, the noes are 12-3. The noes are Davis, Lear, and Rill. Okay, the next one is, we're in the middle of this divided. Yeah. Yeah, because we divided her. We're in the middle of Member Earl's divided motions. Unless it's a prioritized motion, like to adjourn or, I mean, there's certain things that will trump that, but yes. Yeah, we need to move through this quickly. Senate Ed has been moved to 3 o'clock. Yes.
I think these are really important bills. I have just as much problem with supporting bills as some do with opposing bills. These are important. I think we need to adequately discuss them and have the opportunity. So I get the urgency.
Okay.
But I also get the importance.
I'm seeing no lights, so we'll move to the second motion, which is to move to support HB 209 second substitute homeschool amendments. Do we need any clarification on this one? Okay, Member
And
Superintendent.
I'd also especially like to know, I read the bill that came out initially. I'd like to know how the substitute changes it.
The meeting till 3 o'clock.
As Member Davis points out, we didn't know these in advance, so I need to know now.
Is this on? Okay, it's on. Okay, so HB 209 homeschool amendments from Representative Peck. The first draft, well, first I'll tell you what it does and then I'll tell you about the two drafts. So what this does is removes the requirement that a parent sign an affidavit to remove their student from public school and homeschool them, and it replaces with a letter of intent. So rather than an affidavit, it's a letter of intent. It also removes the requirement for parents to attest to a criminal background history. And that's essentially the two sections that it does. In the first sub, the sponsor tried to do that within all of the homeschool code. But then after speaking with the drafting attorneys and some other legislators, they just took entirely out the code about the criminal background check. Rather than trying to amend it with extra language, they just removed it completely. So that's it, the intent is still the same and the effect is pretty much still the same. They just did it in two different ways.
So to follow up,
Yes.
so now a parent who would be homeschooling children doesn't have the same background check that a school teacher and every employee in a school is required to have.
So the short answer is you are correct. It is different. There is the requirement for the background check previously was not super clear. It was, it was not super clear in code that parents needed to be background checked. There really wasn't a statewide, but there was a section of code that some districts were interpreting as needing a background check. So now it's just removed that entirely so that.
And then just to follow up one more. Then even understanding that many homeschoolers meet together with groups and small groups, larger groups, and they go on field trips. And so it's not always the parent only homeschooling her own children. It's often combinations of people. That to me feels both disrespectful of our public employees and also makes me uncomfortable, understanding that the data very clearly say that much of the abuse that happens toward children takes place in their own homes.
Member Davis.
Again, I haven't had time to read this, but I'm just trying to hurry and read. I agree with some of, even just in the highlighted provisions, but some is concerning, for example, the removing liability from local school boards after student unenrollment, because some liability isn't removed. For example, under federal law, you have to offer special education for every student that's homeschooled and such. And so until I can study it further, I'm probably a no on it.
Member Ballinger?
I have two clarifying questions, and maybe Superintendent Nui will be able to answer them. Is one just following up on Member Davis, is how does this impact our requirement of offering FAPE or a free and appropriate public education? Typically in an affidavit, when they sign that, it will state that they recognize that the school district is, that by homeschooling, they're opting out of that option. So that's my first question, is how does that impact our liability?
So when a parent unenrolls their student from public school and opts to homeschool them, they are no longer eligible for IDEA and FAPE. So we no longer have a liability or a responsibility for that.
Did you have a follow-up to that?
I did. So with that, so my understanding that this bill, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't been able to read the full second substitute, but is that there's no longer a requirement to do a letter of intent to homeschool and or an affidavit if they haven't even enrolled their child in public school. So to your point of, if they're enrolled and they withdraw, that's their, that would make sense with the FAPE. But if they haven't even enrolled their child in the first place, does that impact our ability to understand and know how many students we have in our state?
I mean, it would functionally, yes, because we wouldn't have any record of them or anything on our record. So yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Earl and then Member Bogus.
Yeah, just a couple things. Do you know, is there anywhere in law that says in order to be a parent, you need to have a background check? I just in general.
That I know of.
Okay, so any parent could be a parent without a background check. Okay, just checking. Then the other thing, there's one other thing. It's when someone chooses to have their kids go over to someone's house or chooses to engage in other educational opportunities, whether that's after school, maybe they go to a sports thing or they a club down the road. I don't know that they require a background check. This is actually clarity for the I think for schools, to be honest with you. for a period of time, one of my children, I homeschooled, I got an affidavit, I still get it. And my kids haven't been in school. So I think this actually creates a clarity. So, and I think it's easier, it's less cumbersome for parents. And I think they have to, you can correct me if I'm wrong, they have to give a letter of intent. It's not like kids just don't show up and they say, I'm homeschooling. There's a letter of intent if you take them from, remove them from the public school. It's just not an affidavit. So.
Member Bogus.
So I just really would share Member Earl's previous questions. If a court of law has determined you to be a fit parent in the case of a interesting background, and they have cleared you of any of those things, then your right to homeschool exists. It just does. And then if neighbors, friends, et cetera, believe that there are issues in that home, there is a process that we go through, and that's a reporting process. And the Department of Health and Human Services figures that all out on their side. But if you are a parent, period, or a court of competent jurisdiction has reinstated your parental rights, that follows into the realm of homeschool. Just period. I support this bill. I think that the sponsor's done a lot of great work on it. And I really do appreciate it on behalf of educational freedom and the people in our state that exercise their right to homeschool. Thank you, Member Earl, for the motion.
Member Brinton and then Member Lear.
I just want to second what Member Earl and Member Bogus just said. All over in code, it talks about parents in Utah have retained the fundamental right, duty to exercise primary control over the care, supervision, upbringing, and education of the parent's child. The state's role is secondary and supportive. So I totally support this.
Yes.
And as you raised the point about the affidavit, an affidavit is different than just a letter. An affidavit's a sworn statement. And I think that if there has to be a understanding of you giving up your IDEA rights, especially if a student's not leaving the school for homeschooling, but rather initially going into homeschooling, then I think it should be a stronger statement from the parent so that the school has the protection of the sworn statement of the parent understanding, as opposed to parent later saying, well, I really had no idea I did that. So I think the affidavit staying in place is important also, which is just another reason I oppose this.
Okay, thank you. And Member Bollinger and then Member Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, I do understand Member Earl's concerns about having to redo a affidavit every year. I support that portion of the bill. I also support, as Member Britton has mentioned, the parents' right to homeschool. I absolutely think that is their right, as it should be. So there are parts of this bill that I think are great and that do need to happen. My only concern why I cannot support this bill is the concern about not being able to understand or know how many students are in the state of Utah. As you know, many students come in and out of the school system, and we need to be able to know and be able to support those as they do come in and out, especially with some of the new supports we have for homeschool students. And so for that reason, I won't be able to support this bill.
Okay, Member Davis.
I just want to echo some of the sentiments here. I don't think, you necessarily need a background check to be a parent. The only thing that concerns me about this is that if you don't have those and understandings, especially initially, you're making it so a principal can't go and offer. When I was a principal, by law, federally, I had to go out and offer services to every single one of my homeschooling families. And if you don't know you have them, you can't go out and offer in a child find type of law. So I think that is contradictory. It's got to be fixed, but I do support the other things.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any more lights. I think we will move to a vote. So Member Bogus. This is a vote to support.
Am I waiting? Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. Member Bollinger,
No.
Member Booth,
Yes.
Member Brinton,
Yes.
Member Davis,
No.
Member Earl,
Yes.
Member Green,
Yes.
Member Hall,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hart is not here, Chair Hymas,
Yes.
Member Kelly,
Yes.
Member Carey,
Yes.
Member Lear,
No.
Member Real. I'm a yes, that passes with 10-4. The 4 noes are Bollinger, Davis, Lear, and Real. All right, we have another, we need to clear this room. So if, thank you, there's a motion to adjourn. I did want to clarify to Member Earl, if you could bring those two back next time, if you're acceptable. Okay, so a motion to adjourn, it's a non-debatable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Great.